Welcome to the History Channel's How London Was Built tour with me, Adam Hart-David. This route is a rich bag of architectural, economic, social and medical history, if I do say so myself. It will take you from the centre of the medieval city of London, the Guildhall, south across the river to Southwark. Start by making your way to Bank Tube Station. When you get to the surface, there seem to be streets heading off in all directions, so make sure you find the right one, Princes Street, and head along it. Take the first left, Gresham Street, and on your right you'll soon see the Guildhall. Built in the 1400s, the Guildhall was the political and economic heart of medieval London. The name comes from the Anglo-Saxon word guild, which means payment, so citizens would probably have come here to pay their taxes. It was also the meeting place for the men that ran the city. They were businessmen, drawn from the trade guilds or livery companies. There was one for every type of trade within the city, and you can still see from the street names where each one was based. Here inside the Guildhall are displayed the coats of arms and the banners of the 12 great livery companies. They have a strict order of precedence, and this has caused some fierce arguments, especially between the skinners and the merchant tailors. The skinners' banner is right opposite me there, and the merchant tailors up above me here. Eventually, they agreed to alternate between number 6 and number 7, and that's said to be the origin of the phrase, at 6s and 7s. The Guildhall is open to the public, free of charge, as long as there's no major event going on inside, so make sure you take the chance to have a good look round. Then head back to Bank Tube Station, because we're off to see the old lady of Threadneedle Street. At the end of Princes Street, turn left, and there she is. The old lady is, of course, the Bank of England. As the bank's business grew, its building had to grow too. Sir John Soane was the first architect to face the challenge of housing a large commercial concern. Instead of building upwards, as we do today, he built out, eventually covering a site of 3.5 acres. Round the whole thing, he built this curtain wall. And for maximum security, he built it with no windows at all, which meant that inside everything had to be lit with skylights, and it's a bit gloomy, all the staff complain. But the fact is that this curtain wall did its job. Nobody has ever climbed into the building over it, which is why we can say that things are as safe as the Bank of England. The Bank of England Museum is definitely worth a look, although it's only open on weekdays. Now, back to Bank Tube Station, and this time head south, down King William Street. You'll soon pass the monument on your left, built to commemorate the Great Fire of London in 1666. But that's part of another of my tours, so you can come back to that later. Follow King William Street, and you'll soon reach London Bridge. On your left is Lower Thames Street, with the Church of St Magnus the Martyr close by. I recommend popping in here to see the brilliant 4-metre-long model of the medieval London Bridge. And here it is. Just look at this. What amazes me is all the buildings on the bridge. There are 3-storey houses, there are shops down below, there's a chapel, the Thomas à Becket Chapel, there's a gatehouse here, there are pigs in the street, and lots of chaps on foot and cows here as well. Here's a bit of naked bridge, but mostly it's covered in buildings. Now, in the old days, before this, they could put a single arch over a stream, but here this is 276 metres long, and they had to have, look, 19 arches. Absolutely extraordinary, arch after arch, and they're incredibly narrow too. Just look at this one here. Hello. You can see it'd be quite tough to get a boat through there, it's so narrow. And in fact, if the tide was unfavourable, there could be a 6-foot drop from your side upstream to my side, so that you'd shoot through at tremendous speed. It was called shooting the bridge, and the watermen loved it, but it was dangerous. A lot of them died. And a proverb came which said, the bridge was for wise men to cross over and for fools to go under. Walk to the south end of the bridge and turn right. You're now entering what was once known as the Manor of Southwark, or the Liberty of the Clink. This area was governed by the Bishop of Winchester, and was beyond the reach of the law courts of both the City of London and the County of Surrey. This led to it becoming a haven for all sorts of nefarious and dodgy activities, but it also became the entertainment district, because the strict rules of the city didn't apply here. Incredibly, the bishop himself issued licenses to prostitutes, who are known as Winchester geese. Fortunately, Southwark's come up a bit in the world since then. Keep bearing right, and you'll find Clink Street, and a museum on the site of London's most infamous jail. When I think of medieval prisons, I think of rat-infested dungeons, and one notorious prison in Southwark, the Clink, was exactly like that. Built on the south side of the Thames, in an area full of theatres and brothels, for 700 years, the Clink was a place of terror for heretics, debtors and criminals arrested in the nearby streets. Life in here was pretty unpleasant, partly because you were chained up all the time. On the hands you'd have manacles or handcuffs like this, and on your legs or feet you'd have these fetters, which are very, very heavy, great heavy chain. So even if you escaped, you wouldn't be able to run very much. And the noise in here must have been horrible. Screams from the whipping post or the pillory. And then for people wandering around, clank, clank, clank. In fact, it probably got its name, the Clink, from this very clinking noise, which must have been absolutely continuous. Now, turn right outside the Clink, and right again down Stony Street, left at the end, then right at the crossroads down St Thomas Street. St Thomas's Hospital stood on this site since as far back as records go, but it moved to Lambeth in the 1860s. We're here to visit the one forgotten remnant of that old hospital. And this is it. This is the operating theatre. And it really was a theatre because leaning on these rails all the way round would be 150 medical students fascinated with the operation going on below. In Victorian times, all the surgeons would have been men, but Sarah knows all about how it operated. What sort of operations did they carry out?
The two major operations were lithotomy, or cutting for the stone, which is to remove bladder stones.
Oh, I see, yes, okay.
And amputation.
So how do they do amputations?
Well, this is the amputation set here. What the surgeon would do is you'd start off with your knife. One of the methods would be to cut round the limb all the way through to the bone, and then once you'd pulled back the flesh to expose the bone, you'd use the saw and
to go through the bone. Now for the final leg of the tour. Head back to Borough High Street and turn left. After a short walk, turn left down Newcomen Street. And now for the final stop on the tour and a hidden relic of Old London Bridge. This fabulous coat of arms. You see at the top it says King's Arms 1890, that's when this pub was rebuilt, but underneath it says George III 1760. That was the year that George III came to the throne. In fact, that coat of arms was on the south gate of London Bridge in the time of his dad, George II. And it was in 1760, the whole lot was demolished, all the houses, the south gate and everything, and sold, and that's why it landed up on this pub. But when the bridge was there with the arch, everyone who crossed the bridge must have walked under that arch and indeed under that coat of arms. And I think I ought to do it too, just in remembrance. There's no bridge there, but there might be a bar, mightn't there? I suggest you follow my lead and enjoy some richly deserved liquid refreshment. I hope you've enjoyed this tour. Don't forget you can download more History Channel podcasts at thehistorychannel.co.uk/podcasts. Goodbye.